Okay, not much of a sunset yet. It rained over on the horizon. I don't know if you can see the cloud cover still way back there, but it's slowly drifting away, so we might get a really nice sunset tonight or absolutely nothing. There'll be nothing in between. It's going to be great or it's going to suck. Let's find out. Got about, what time is it? 5:14. Yeah, 45 minutes before we know whether or not nature's on our side. What do we got here? Saskatoon, Ottawa, Texas, Mississauga, Alberta. Excellent. Trudeau is playing a bad April Fool's joke on all of us. And it started 8 years ago. Maybe he's in one of those Groundhog Day things where he keeps thinking it's April 1st. Keeps waking up saying, not yet, not yet. I'll tell him at noon. Your network advice is working. Good, good. Waiting for a level 3 results in 21 days. What's your educated guess about the MPS? Usually level 3 is mid to high 60s, only because the structured response, in my best estimation, is not a perfect exam. It takes a lot to get a structured response question correct such that there can only be one answer. It's very hard to write it. Usually there's a leak in there somewhere where there's a possibility of 2 or 3, and sometimes the possibility of no answer. So I don't think that level 3 candidates go into the exam not knowing the answers. I think they go into the exam facing what seems like an ambiguous question, because the writer always knows what they're saying. So to them, it's unambiguous, but only in testing do you find out it's ambiguous. So it's just they're just really difficult questions to write. And to grade, they're not that difficult, but they can be. I don't know why they don't opt for something else, something different than the structured response. You could opt for something different, but this is where they are. I came because notification said Trudeau sucks, and I agree. I mean, that's all you have to say. I don't know that there's much of a discussion. Trudeau sucks, and there's no pushback on that. Egypt is in the house. Detroit. I lived outside Detroit for almost 20 years in Windsor. Spent a lot of time in Detroit. Not too much, just enough, but spent a lot of time there. If a put was assigned to me and I wanted to buy the underlying, can I buy them with the margin with IBKR, or would I be required to pay with hard cash? Well, no, you can, if it's assigned to you, let's say it's a $50 stock and you sold puts for $2. Well, you got $200 of the $5,000 price. You got to come up with $4,800. You can use margin and only come up with $2,400 and borrow the other $2,400 from IBKR. But given where interest rates are, the margin rate, I think, is like 110 basis points, 120 basis points above, 5.5%. So you're paying 6.7, 6.8% margin interest. And now, mind you, that's on an annualized basis. So if you think the stock's going up 20%, well, then it's a carry trade. You're more than willing to pay 6.8% on 2,400 to have a $5,000 position, go up, 10% or 20%. But it is expensive to have margin or have margin loans right now. Have you been to Saskatchewan? Have I been to Saskatchewan? No, I haven't. I've flown over it, but I've never been in it. Iraq, Canada East Coast. Not a lover of Trudeau, unlike most people. The last polls showed the East Coast almost all going conservative. East Coast is usually a liberal stronghold. Ignatieff, when he was running the Liberal Party, I think the only seats he got was East Coast. He got 3 right away very quickly, and then I think they ended up with a total of 6 across, after they were all done. But even when the Liberals are not wanted, the East Coast is generally a Liberal stronghold. But the last polls showed the Conservatives pretty much taking it all, except for Labrador, Newfoundland, Labrador. How many hours a day did you study per day to become a specialized in the markets you did? Well, it's not hours of studying anymore. It's a lifestyle of being in the market, in the conversation. So you're not really studying; you're continually learning every day. So it's years. It's years, and I still feel like I get beaten up sometimes. Like, in some positions, I think, how could I have been so bloody wrong? Like when I'm right, I'm right. I'm about 90% right. But when I'm wrong, my God, I'm wrong. My God, I'm wrong. I'm not wrong just a little. Philadelphia. Let's see. You were saying that ZERP is the likely future for U.S. I believe that. Would that lead to inflation? I don't think so. No, simply because you have more and more of the stuff we do digital. Think about how much stuff you do during the day that's digital. From whatever entertainment you get online to whatever social recreation you have, a lot of that has moved online. So the production of something digital is unlimited. It has declining costs to scale. When you have large populations becoming factories, China was a good example of a large population becoming a factory. You drive down the cost of finished goods, and now it's going to move to India. Don't know that India will exactly replicate China, because I think they'll want to avoid a lot of the mistakes with China. But when you layer on all of this talk about AI, and a lot of it's not AI, a lot of it is predictive, analytics, which has been around for years. SPSS in 2004, 2005 was a leader in predictive analytics. IBM bought them. No one was saying AI back then. It was just predictive analytics, because there was no attempt at generating anything new. So there's predictive AI, which is nothing more than regression. That's always been around. It's just hot to say predictive AI. It is the more generative AI that can take some data and see something and make decisions that are outside the scope of what a prediction would say. They're much, if you can think about data collection, just in the productivity boost, just that can do in the finance industry alone, writing low-level code. That's all deflationary. That is all deflationary. So no, I don't see us entering a world of inflation. I see us entering or continuing on this technological march, and technology is deflationary. And as each day goes by, there's a company out there finding a way to take an old economy business and disrupt it with a technology overlay, and that will continue on. So yeah, I see the world becoming more deflationary, not inflationary. I just did my tax in Canada. I never felt so violated. What am I even paying for? That's the point, right? I made that point to somebody yesterday, that when we think about high tax rates, it wouldn't be so bad if I were getting more and more for my tax rates. If suddenly the roads were clearer and wider, if healthcare and access to healthcare improved dramatically, and I could get a doctor's appointment in 36 hours instead of having absolutely no doctor for I don't know how many years it's been now. You walk into a doctor's office, can I Can I get an appointment? We are not taking any new patients. Try to get a doctor. So you're paying more and more in taxes and getting less and less. There are more homeless encampments. There's more crime. The roads are more and more crowded. You can't get anywhere in any reasonable amount of time, especially around Toronto. Forget that idea. I'm sure Vancouver is the same way. So when you start seeing that, well, you know, what am I paying for? Like, we're not solving any problems. It seems every year we're just layering on new and new problems, and we're paying more and more, and we keep getting bigger problems of the same thing and layering on more problems. You know, and it comes down to a simple thing, that the more you move towards the state taking care of you, the more you move towards a welfare state, the greater the increase in poverty you're going to have. It's sort of a paradox that the more you try to help, the more you're going to get of the behavior you're trying to help. So this is what we have: a violent, criminal, drug-infested, lowering standard of living, unaffordable, zero access to education, healthcare system. The hell do you want to pay into that for? It's not getting any better. Taxes are getting higher, but you keep getting less and less. That's shrinkflation. That's the definition of shrinkflation, right? On a personal level, do you have any regrets in life? Well, I do, but I don't let them weigh me down. I mean, everybody has. Everybody who I think is an interesting person, who's lived the life, who's a complex person. When we say complex, it means that you've made mistakes in life, you've learned from your mistakes, but you know, you've made mistakes. The last thing you want is a perfect judge, right? Nobody wants a perfect judge, because there's no mercy in perfection. But you know, do I let it bother me? Does it haunt me? Not really. No, not to the point that it haunts me. Well, I can't stand the guy just say JT is a symptom of a greater problem. Yeah, I don't know if he's a symptom of a greater problem, or somebody who has learned how to, in a Machiavellian way, feed off a particular problem and magnify it. I think he knows exactly what he's doing in that sense. I don't think he's under any illusion that he's a liberal. I don't think he's under any illusion that he's a feminist. This is just part of his act. He performs liberalism. He performs feminism, which is a trendy thing these days, is to perform progressivism and to perform liberalism. You don't actually have to do anything. You just have to be seen as being outraged at something, or be seen as wanting change and supporting and being an ally. You don't actually have to do any of the work. I think that's what a lot of people are missing about the wonderfulness of progressivism, is you simply have to call somebody out for not doing it, and you're good. You've done your heavy lifting. I mean, that's pretty easy, right? Also, be super, super generous with other people's resources. There you go. You're a progressive. You're a liberal. And that is, that's what the kid in Ottawa is all up to, I think. What is your go-to options trading platform in Canada? Interactive Brokers. But I can't use the Canadian version anymore because I'm not a Canadian resident. I'm also not a Costa Rican resident yet because my application is still in process. So I'm outside, but I did sign my options agreement with JP Morgan today. So give it a day. I'm back in business, baby. And I got a bunch of puts that I'm going to be selling. Do you have any plans to add more books to your recommendations list on your website? Well, it's not my website anymore. It belongs to Serify. I sold the business 2 years ago. I don't know if anyone's really keeping up with that, or the documentaries list, because there's, heck, in the last 2 years, there's a whole bunch of really good documentaries that hit YouTube. Maybe I'll take a weekend and do something about that, but I haven't done anything on that. Istanbul on the line. Have you ever struggled with perfectionism or being overly curious? I'm overwhelmed by my broad interest and strive for perfection, sharing, hearing, specialization. I don't know if I don't know if I struggle with perfectionism. I know I can't do a half-assed job because I feel like shit. Sometimes, I got to do something maybe on the CFA side, and the reading is super boring, and I think, God, I can't do this anymore. And I think I'll do 5 screens. Enough of this. Enough of this. People can read. And then you walk away. You don't do anything. You walk away. You get up the next morning. You think, no. Come on. Let's just get it done. And then you expand it to 8 or 9 screens. You make a few more points. You try to find some interest in it. You try to get something. But perfect? No. I know when I finish narrating, I've done a good job. I know when I've done a good job. I never feel I've done a perfect job because as I'm doing it, I think, okay, the reading's not clear on this. I've done my Google searches, I've done my own research, and there's so much more that the author's missing. So much more. But I can do it, or I could just say, look, that's where CFAI leaves off. Why confuse the listener even more? Let's just give them enough. But I know I could have done better. The old expression that's out there, right? Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Right? Perfect takes forever. Good, as long as you're good, get it out there and iterate and iterate and iterate on good. Eventually you'll approach, a level of what other people would perceive as perfect. Oh, Windsor. Shout out from Windsor. I lived in Tecumseh when I was in Windsor. And then I bought a house in Tecumseh. And then when I sold that and bought another house, I jumped all the way to the other side of Windsor into LaSalle. What else we got here? Bank of Japan hiked rates. Yes, they did. Had a hawkish tone saying they'll potentially increase rates depending on data. Yet the Japanese yen dropped. I think most, I just don't see them having a lot of rate increases in front of them, given the sheer size of the debt the government has, and a problem of a shrinking population. That who are they possibly going to get the money from to pay that stuff back? They're facing, at some point in the future, I don't know how far away, a bankruptcy situation unless they do something. They can't. The higher they raise rates, the more they'll accelerate that bankruptcy situation. Because in the 80s, Japan really had no competition in Southeast Asia. Well, now they've got India, now they've got China, they got Vietnam, Bangladesh, Japan's Korea. They got a whole bunch of competition in that area for their exports now. So their glory days, their powerhouse days, I think, are done. There's still going to be a strong economy, but India will surpass Japan in GDP this decade. India, I think, will end up being, I don't know if they'll pass China this decade. Maybe. China's on the way down, India's on the way up. But how are you going to get that debt paid? It's massive, too. Now, the central bank, the BOJ, did say it was going to continue to buy bonds. We're abandoning yield curve control, but we're still going to buy bonds. So yields are going to be low for some time. And I think the market was thinking as soon as they start raising rates, it'll start a process. And it didn't. It was, here's the one thing we're going to do, now leave us alone. And I think that's what the market is taking away from that. I seem to think if you get a rally in the yen to 146, 145, that would be a nice entry on a carry trade. Do I need to do something special to get the applied series on the app? I don't know if it's available on the app. Again, the applied level is mine. It's just sold on the Serify site, and it's combined with the CFA product, but the app belongs to Serify. I don't know if the applied level is available on the app. I'll have to ask. Could you please indicate the year in which you recorded each of your CFA videos? Sometimes refer to the current market events. It's difficult to determine which year you're talking about. Yeah. Um, yeah, I guess I could. I mean, some readings don't change year over year. They're exactly the same, like same examples, same in a chapter, everything's the same. And you look at it, you say, well, why would I redo the video if that didn't change? But sometimes I forget that I make market comments in them. And by the time you hear them, they're a year old. Yeah. The BOJ increased rates, no longer in negative territory. Yen jumped about 1.3. Well, the yen, oh, the US yen. Okay, I got to jump to 1.3 for 150.95. I think what is a 52-week high on that? I think it was 150, 150 I was looking at it today and I saw the 52-week high, 150, 150, 150, and I thought, wow, looks like even the US dollar is going to hit a 52-week high against the yen. Everything's hitting a 52-week high. GM today, intraday, hit a 52-week high. I don't think on a closing basis. I'm not sure. I'd have to check. But intraday, they breached their 52-week high. Wouldn't we expect the yen to appreciate? Well, you would if you expected what they were doing to continue on. I think it was clear from what they did today that they probably have no plans on doing anything else this year. That was the move they made, and that was it. Question about the vignette format. I expect it to be similar to a case study where you need information from all over the text to answer the question. Instead, the vignette usually comprises 3 paragraphs. Yeah, it's usually written chronologically. In other words, if you look at the first question and you start reading the vignette, you should be able to answer the first question. And then as you keep reading, you'll answer the second, then the third, then the fourth. It's not like you have to jump all over from beginning to end to answer the questions. I think that would be more interesting. I think what would be interesting for a level 3 exam is to have like an 8-page case study, right? And then 80 questions. That was it. So that you had the morning, the first session, to read your case study and make your notes. You know, without knowing what the questions are, you're going to do some calculations, you're going to do some analysis, you're going to do a bunch of stuff, and then you go back, take a break, go back, and it's nothing but questions about the case study. I think that would be a better exam than the structured response vignette thing, because the vignettes seem almost childish sometimes. I'm sure some of you are out there saying, shut up, don't give them any ideas. Each question in that vignette set relates only to a specific paragraph. Yep, meaning you don't need another paragraph to answer the question. Feels unnecessarily cumbersome. I agree. Am I missing a point here? No, you're not. What are your thoughts on the video saying there's another 250 billion opportunity in data centers? 250 billion small? What do they do? 100 billion a year? You know, grow. And if they continue to grow at the rate they're growing at, that's what, 5 more quarters of sales, 6 more quarters, and then it's done. So 250 billion to me seems rather small. And that's assuming they have 100% of the 250 billion. So I don't know that I'm that impressed with a number of 250 billion when they're already doing 100 billion a year, growing at 20% quarter over quarter. You know, you've got almost 100% growth rate year over year. So next year they do 180 billion. And over the next 4 quarters, that tells me that they've satisfied 72% of the market at that point. I don't know. Are you impressed with that? That seems like a 6-quarter thing. They'll do 250 billion in the next 6 quarters. I don't know that that's impressive. Thoughts on PIMCO 25+ year 0 coupon Treasury Index ETF for a duration position instead of TLT? But why? Why not just buy 0 coupon bonds yourself? TLT has a duration of 16 and a half. You're buying a 0 coupon bond. divide the 16.5 by, what is it, 4.5%, 1.045, divide 16.5 by 1.045, you'll get what, 17, what is it, 18 years? Buy an 18-year zero coupon bond, and you have TLT with greater convexity, with no management fees, with about 100 basis point higher yield than TLT. I mean, you don't even need PIMCO to get that done. You could do it yourself. You could do it yourself. I also was thinking of a straddle play right before the Fed meeting. I don't know, straddle on what? Greetings from Mexico. Mexico. I looked at April 8th. I looked at the path of the total eclipse right over. I mean, I'm not there anymore, but where I used to live in the Niagara region, it's going right over the Niagara region and cutting right across Mexico. And there is one point in Mexico, I forget the name of the place, where it's going to be at the height of what do they call, the greatest something, where it will be the darkest, the best view is going to happen in Mexico. Let's see. How do negative currency balances work on IBKR? You pay interest on it. If your account is US and you want to long the US CAD pair, you'll need to post margin for the negative CAD balance? Nope. No, because you'll have a positive US balance. If you do 100,000, your margin, I think, is 2,500 that you need in margin for every 100,000. But whatever currency you're short, whatever you have a negative balance in, keep in mind you're paying the interest rate on that. And you may not get the interest rate on the long balance, so be careful. So if you do a trade like that, look at your currency balances. Take the currency balance that you're long in and buy T-bills with it. It'll still act as margin. It's still fair game because it's cash equivalent. Buy 30-day T-bills. But the side you're short, you're going to have to pay interest on. So sometimes, especially if you're doing 100,000, it's better to do it in the form of a futures contract because the interest rate is implied and the interest rate you get are interbank rates. You're getting SOFR rates and not Interactive Brokers lending rate, which is what you'll pay on your short Canadian balance. So be careful about that. There's a much more efficient way to play Forex, especially if you start playing at the 100,000 level. Do it with futures. What are your thoughts on value investing? I like it. Where do you land on the value investing is dead debate? I don't think it's dead. I think what is boring is value investing and then just sitting there, waiting for it to perform for you. Especially when growth is so growthy. But if you combine value investing with a prudent use of options, you can generate on a stock that barely moves, you can generate a 20% return on invested capital each year. You hear that? Ow. It even hurts the eardrums. That's a cicada, and it's right behind me. Okay, it's gone. I was gonna go see if I can get it to move. Excuse me, cicada, do you mind just moving over here? That's a loud one. I was listening to the business breakdown with D.H. Horton. It's interesting how the big home builders are all asset light now, and the small builders cannot compete. Well, yeah, it's, let me just see if I can angle this a little bit differently. There we go. The cost of financing is so expensive that, if you're going to build spec homes, let's say you have a neighborhood and you want to build 60 spec homes, and you're looking at $500,000 in material on each of these, you got to pay interest on all of that. It's just not conducive to be holding inventory when interest rates are at these levels. And those construction and development loans are usually short-term loan floating rate. You can capitalize all that. I mean, it's in the cost of your inventory, but you still got to sell the inventory. So yeah, it is, it's really not worth it. Do you think there's a reversal for declining populations, a country like Japan and Italy without the obvious net immigration. You got to convince them to have kids, lots of kids, and they're not going to be productive for 18 years. So you've still got like a 20-year gap in there that you got to do something. I don't know that, I don't know about Italy, but if anyone is on from Japan, you can sort of chime in on this one. But Japan's isolationism comes from centuries of it. There were, going back hundreds of years, it was known in that region you don't approach the island at all. They didn't want anything to do with outsiders. That philosophy still holds. I don't see Japan as being a net immigration country. I just don't see it. So I don't know that there is a reversal for it. Getting my back cracked, and my chiropractor is wondering how your Costa Rica residence application is going. Let's say that again in a different way so that it's true. Getting my back cracked, and my witch doctor is wondering how your Costa Rica residence application is going. It's slow. It's administrative down here. It was usually 6 to 8 months, like 14 to 18 months now. It takes a long time. Witch doctor. Good times. Last time you showed that portfolio size does not matter when it comes to generating sustainable alpha. Then why do so many fund managers underperform? I think they underperform. At a certain size, you can't go after small opportunities. It doesn't move the needle. So option selling, for example, would be difficult to do at scale, at really large size. If you're $1 billion fund, going to be hard to get done because you're going to leave footprints. And you're probably not going to get the strategy in place that you want to get in place. It's also small cap stocks aren't going to have the capacity you need to take a position to get in and get out without moving the very stock, which is what you don't want to do. So you gravitate towards companies that have large amounts of shares outstanding. They usually have lots of analyst following and usually are much more efficient. So when I say efficient, information finds its way into pricing, which means you have to have some kind of edge that the rest of the market doesn't have. It's brutally hard to do, very hard. But if you are running a $50 million fund, let's say, 50 million, I don't think you're capacity constrained at all. I think you can move in and out of options positions without leaving too many footprints. But yeah, the bigger you get, the harder it's going to be to take, you may find an interesting opportunity, but then look at it and say, there's just no way that I can get in and out without moving the very stock. And there's no way, if I don't move the stock, if I go in small enough, there's no way for me to move the needle on this. It might add 1 basis point, and it's just not worth doing. I know you took a liking to AT&T. Do you ever look at the telecom tower REITs? American Tower, I think, is the big player in that one. But I haven't looked at them lately, or what they've been doing. Yeah, I don't have too much of an opinion on the tower REITs. Let's suppose you were born in a third world country. What would you do? Where would you immigrate to? So that's a good question. If I were born in a third world country, I guess I would have to ask, would I have the same biological skills that I have now? By biological skills, I mean the same talents I have, the same brain, the same cognitive power I have now. And if I did, let's say I was born here, but I just grew up with the same personality, the same cognitive abilities, Being that this country is so inefficient in so many ways, I'd probably not be thinking of moving to another country because I'd probably own a significant part of this country already. But if I was a product of the environment, in other words, not the right access to education to develop, I wasn't born into a family that could afford the private schools, I'd probably have my own business. If I still had the same personality, I'd probably have my own business, but it would be more of a manual type business. But I would have found my way into entrepreneurship somehow. That's assuming I have the same personality, but I just didn't have the same opportunity to develop cognitively. However, when I look at the locals here and how they live, it's a rough life. It certainly is a rough life. But I don't see a lot of anger. I don't see a lot of rage. I don't see a lot of desperation, even though there might be desperate. I see a lot of happy people. Generally, I just see a lot of happy people. Even just driving down the road, as bad as the traffic here is, there's a general lack of honking. I mean, you get little courtesy beeps every now and then, and little beeps for thank you if when you stop to let someone in. But beyond that, it's driving sucks, but it's fairly stress-free in that sense. You don't have the same kind of anger you have, even on the roads in Canada, you get anger. I don't know if too many Costa Ricans are looking to get the hell out of here. Because I think the government here is a little bit more progressive and sort of center line than the governments you have in like Venezuela. That you have a lot of Venezuelans traveling through Costa Rica, heading on up all the way to the U.S. border. I guess it would be, what third world country was I born in? I'm trying to get the angle for where all the color in the sky is tonight. Looks like it's gonna hang out over there. We're about 10 or 15 minutes away from figuring out whether or not Mother Nature is gonna be helpful with the sunset tonight. What's the main difference between Costa Rica and Mexico as far as moving there or remote running a business from there? Well, I don't know much about Mexico, but there is a tax rate. Here, for the type of income I make, there is no income tax rate. But I don't know much about Mexico. I think there are a lot more Americans that choose Mexico over Costa Rica, and it could be because if they change their mind, the border's right there. Who is John Galt? Well, that is the question, right? Anybody else know that reference? It's the first line of a book. A pretty good book overall. I think that had a pretty good message. I don't think it gets the dues it should have, even though it's written from an extreme perspective. Sometimes you have to use a thought experiment and use an extreme case to make a point, and I think Ayn Rand made a good point. Have you found an IBKR equivalent in Costa Rica? Yep, IBKR. Also, have you entered into an OTC derivative position on your personal portfolio? OTC? No, not OTC. If you don't mind, could you share what was your strategy to generate 20 to 30% return year over year? Positions in, from 2010 to 2020, real estate killed. I mean, you just grab the REIT sector and hang on. And I just kept selling puts and selling puts and selling puts. And that's what I did. And yeah, you can think each year, over those years, my average was 20.5, 20.6% in the most boring sector, but real estate killed. I think over that period of time, real estate outperformed the SPY over that period of time. It was the best sector. I just happened to be in a sector I understood that happened to be killer in performance. Am I gonna replicate that over the next 10 years? I'm hoping, that some of the picks that I have can get that done. I think copper is going to be a big play. I think energy is probably going to be a bigger play than most people think. In fact, today, good news for GM, Ford, and other internal combustion engine makers. A couple of years ago, I keep referring to this, I put out a video saying the ice age is far from over. ICE meaning internal combustion engine. And I went through a list of all these countries that are saying no more internal combustion by 2030, 2035, etc. Countries have been slowly pushing that back. What happened today in the US? Does anybody know? The CAFE standards were lowered. So what would have been difficult from 2027 onwards for GM, for example, between 2027 and 2032, they would have faced almost $6.5 billion in regulatory fines because of the standards. They were now relaxed. So now they don't kick in till 2030. See that subtle, quiet way in which they're pushing it back. They're pushing it back. The ice age will be with us for a very long time. I think GM and Ford are great for selling puts on. I don't know that I want to be an owner, but great for selling puts on. And anything in the Permian Basin, I think, is a winner. Trudeau has put the 4-year term before re-election from the U.S. into a new light. He'll be there for another 2 years. He's going to do 5 years. I am sans a college degree and have no aspirations to be an analyst. So I very much appreciate the Applied series. What more should I learn aside from 10Ks as a retail trader? That's your library, is Edgar. 10Ks, that's all you need. 10Ks and Google. You start reading, and as soon as you hit something you don't understand, where you go, okay, hang on, I'm not quite clear. What is this? Google it. Just Google it. You live with a 10K for a couple of weeks, like you would live with a book for a couple of weeks, and you'll come out knowing a company and knowing an industry. And then move on to the next one. That's what you read, 10Ks. Is Polyev the answer? Well, think about it as you're in a restaurant and you want dessert, and there's ice cream or pumpkin pie, and you think, that's it? Well, which one do you prefer, right? So this is what we have in both the U.S. and Canada is you have, well, is it perfect? No. Well, which do you prefer at this point in time? And it's, more about what we prefer. I don't know if he's the answer. I think he's the answer for profligate spending. I think he's the answer. I think he'll probably be more apt to say, what are we doing? Safe supply of drugs for drug addicts? Enough of that. What are we buying him needles? Enough of that. I think he'll be more likely to do that. I think he'll be more likely to cut regulation, but I don't think he'd be more likely to cut taxes. He'll cut spending, but you can't cut spending and cut taxes and balance the budget. I think he'll probably be more likely to balance a budget sooner than the Liberals, because the Liberals have no plan to balance the budget all the way through 2030. And then no plans to balance the budget at all. It's not even a thought. Balance a budget. Why? It's not even a thought. I think he's more likely to balance a budget through through getting rid of useless things. Number one, defund the CBC, for God's sake. $1.5 billion a year, and what is it? 4% of Canadians watch the bloody thing. Why? Again, there's another thing that I'm paying tax for, only to tune in and be called names because I'm a white straight male. I'm not kidding you. The shows that they have on, they have dialogue in some of their shows that just insult white straight men. It's like, white people are still 66% of this country. I wouldn't go shitting all over us, right? And what am I paying $1.5 billion, or not me, but we're paying $1.5 billion a year for what, a channel to insult white people and to sing the praises of Trudeau all day long? So yeah, I think he'll solve that stupid little problem, but he's not going to cut taxes. No one's going to cut taxes. That's why I left. I just don't see that ever happening. So I'm gone. By the way, I was mentioned in a news article that was written, I think it's called, I forget what the publication is called, but they're talking about Canadians coming down here to escape tax rates, which is why, my name came up as somebody to talk to. But as that you're reading that article, there are other people in that article, same thing. It's just, get me out of this now. Where are we here? I was going through your par curve, spot curve, forward curve. The placement of the curves. Is it purely mathematical based? Is there any intuition behind it? It's purely mathematical. Well, let me rephrase that. The par curve is sentiment driven. Sentiment driven to some degree. Sentiment about what the expectation of future growth and future inflation is going to be. So within the par rates is the market's estimate of what the fair yield would be on a 5-year, a 7-year, a 10-year. From that, the spot rate is mathematical and the forward rate is mathematical. Now, the other way you could look at it is, let's say you had a market that had nothing but zero coupon bonds. Then the spot curve would be sentiment driven and the par curve and the forward curve would be purely mathematical. There's a board that decides how many professionals per year get created. Dermatologists, dentists, other specialties. That's what a hospital director who was recently retired told me. Do you think that is a reason, like, people don't want to work here? A board that decides how many professionals a year get created? I don't know enough to comment on that, but I know we have people coming to Canada that have engineering degrees and medical degrees from other countries. Let's just see if we can't get a slightly different view here. And they can't practice medicine, or they can't work as an engineer. For some reason, some of their qualifications are not recognized here. I don't know if that would be the case. Maybe? I don't know. I don't know enough about that. Yeah, that's a boring view. Let's see if I can move a little bit over here. There we go. That's a bit of a nicer view there. I'm working in operations in UBS. How can I make a transition to a more analytical position or risk management? Yeah, so I'm very far removed from the job market, and every organization is different. I would say this is a conversation that you can have with your HR department, or with whoever your immediate supervisor is, or with somebody else on the floor, or walk over to the department that you want to be in and ask them how you find your way over there. Troubling finance trends include supply manipulation and real estate funds limiting affordable housing. These concerns dampen my passion. Can I regain faith, or am I overthinking? Well, what I think you're referring to is human nature. No matter what system you design, human nature is going to show up. There is no utopia. And even if you could design a utopia, somebody's controlling it, and somebody is exploiting other people in that system. That's human nature. So we as humans long ago decided to enter into a social contract. And a social contract says, hey, listen, why don't we agree to give up some of our freedoms in exchange for some protections? I give up my freedom to steal your things. In exchange, I get the protection of you not stealing my things. That's the social contract. Still doesn't help with human nature. Human nature will still show up. There'll still be people in that society who decide that they're not going to abide by the social contract. Centuries ago, people like that would be exiled. You must leave the city, you must leave the town on pain of death. Out you go, we don't want you here. And then they were done with them. But we don't do that anymore. We keep them in society. So there'll always be that underbelly, that undertone of human nature that ruins it for everybody else. So I don't know that I would be negative on finance or negative on capitalism or negative on business because human nature exists. No matter what system you get, human nature will show up. So I'm going to quote somebody else. I don't know who said this. Said that capitalism is the worst system ever, except for all the others, right? When you bring it down to its core, it's not a system that is sick, it's human nature. The best systems in the world have strong structures. The stronger the structure, the less the human condition shows up. The weaker the structures, the more the human condition shows up. So if you are soft on crime, for example, you will actually get more crime. It's not as if criminals will go, oh, well, that was nice. The judge let me go. You know what? I think I'm going to go straight. I mean, that was really, I was expecting the worst, and that would have just made me a bad person. But this guy, I'm going straight. No, that's not what happens. If you have strong structures, you have a better social contract. When you have weak structures, you have a worse social contract. And we're all part of this social contract, and society's not living up to what it wants, not because society is broken, is because human nature is broken, and soft structures allow the human condition to show up even more. You want a nice, safe place, you need very strong structures. Dubai has wickedly strong structures, but it's one of the safest places on earth. One of the safest places on earth. One of the safest places in terms of living up to its obligation to provide for the social contract. You all agreed to give up some rights in exchange for some freedoms, right? Or in exchange for some protections. We will make sure you get those protections. But if you breach the social contract, oh man, I pity you. But in Canada, it doesn't work that way. In the US, it doesn't work that way. In Western countries that are progressive, it doesn't work that way. So you end up with a breakdown. Don't blame capitalism. Don't blame finance. And this is a case. I don't know if you ever saw the Will Smith show where he says, hate the game, not the player. Well, in this instance, it's hate the player, not the game. The game is the best game you'll ever play, which is capitalism. It's the best allocation of resources in the world. It's the best promoter of innovation in the world. It's the best way out of poverty in the world. But you got to hate the player sometime. It's the player that makes the game suck, not the system, the player. So you might be down on human nature, not so much capitalism. Maybe that was a little more of an answer than what you were looking for. Let's see. Are you looking forward to the 2024 Olympics? Not really. No. No, I can't say that I am. Let's see. Mark, honestly, what's your net worth? That's hard to say. It's hard to quantify what it is because it would require me valuing illiquid assets. So what is my business worth? Well, it depends. It depends on the assumptions I make about future growth. That's very hard to do. So, if I'm trying to get a loan, my net worth is very, very high, as Donald Trump would say. And if I'm trying to pay tax, my net worth is really, really low, as Donald Trump would say. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't think I've ever sat down and added it up. I'm kind of lucky that I'm past that, adding things up and seeing where I stand. Let's just say, like the Federal Reserve, I live in a system of ample reserves. We'll just say that. What are ample? I don't know. I'll let you know when they're not ample. But yeah, I'm like the Fed. I'm in ample reserves. Boston, New Delhi. Do you miss Canada or nah? Nah, I don't miss Canada. I moved from New York to Toronto for similar reasons, but I miss home some days. Moved to New York from Toronto. Yeah, I guess if you have a lot of family or family ties in Canada, maybe you miss it. I don't. What are your thoughts on quantitative trading? I don't like any trading that I can't tell a story about. If I can't find the story, if all I can find is a quantitative relationship, I'm reminded of long-term capital management, where they found a whole bunch of great quantitative relationships until it just stopped working, because they didn't have the behavioral argument. They only had the quantitative argument. They just felt that all these spreads will revert, and they were taking long and short positions that should have converged, and they started diverging. Well, they'll converge tomorrow, and they diverged, and they kept going until, look, these things aren't converging, are they? Not today. So I kind of want a story behind things that I do. So maybe quantitative trading finds you an opportunity, but then I'd want to say, well, hang on a second. What's the catalyst here? What's the story behind this? What does that sound? Those are cicadas. They complain when the sun rises. They're pretty quiet all day long, and then they complain when the sun sets. I think they're complaining. Maybe it's club time. Maybe this is their club time, and they're all just, hey, you looking good, girl. I'm Manu. What's your view on Apple and Google partnership? That was announced today, I think, right? There was some announcement on that today, and I don't think it did much for, it didn't do much for Apple, I don't think. I think Google had a decent enough day. And I don't know whether or not they were trying to capitalize on, I guess, what was going on with NVIDIA. I don't know. Have you seen any more wandering spiders? No, but this morning, nice big wolf spider. I just let the wolf spider be because I'm sure it's having a field day with these cicadas. Big enough to take one down, but I haven't seen any more wandering spiders. But there's this spray that you spray the perimeter of your house with that's supposed to keep spiders and snakes away. And I haven't had any spiders or snakes in the house for quite some time. There was a live wall in the house. I mean, there's this big wall with plants running right down the wall. It was a live wall. Took it down because I thought it didn't make sense. And when we took it down, snakes and spiders went everywhere in the house. It was just harboring snakes and spiders. And then it took a couple of weeks to get them all out, to find them, because they just they just went out. Some epic fights too, especially with those snakes. But I haven't had one in the house for quite some time now. Do you think Justin Trudeau will save us with the power of homoerotic socks? What a boob. Background sound is pretty bad. Yeah, that's the cicadas. Not much I can do about that. Long-term passive retail investor, is it better to invest a lump sum of cash in a major index right now, or dollar cost average right now when markets are at all-time highs? Well, you tell me what your investment horizon is. If you say it's 5 years, if you say, well, I'm 25 and it'll be the next 40 years, I don't think it matters. It's not as if this will be your only investment in the market. You'll make several investments over your life. Well, several investments per year over the rest of your life. So I don't know about 100% allocation to an equity index, right? I can reverse engineers Mark's NW. He said max 4% any one position. He once put 2 million in one position. So 2 million, 50 million in CAD. I talk too much sometimes. Level 2 Canada. Can you please advise how I can get into the finance industry from education industry and 5+ years of accounting experience? I don't know. Every time I get questions like this, I always say the same thing. I am far removed from the job market. I just don't have an answer for that. Thoughts on Patrick Boyle? his YouTube channel and his books. I find it to be absolutely hilarious in breaking down complex financial topics. Patrick Boyle, the name is familiar. Patrick Boyle. Doesn't his actual face doesn't come to mind, but the name sounds familiar. Best way to guarantee superior returns. Well, you're never going to guarantee superior returns. You know, what's the best way to generate superior returns? I don't know that there is any one best way. I think if you have an investment process and you stay true to your process, whatever that process is, whether it's value investing, growth investing, momentum investing, technical, you know, you're investing technically. If you have a process and you stay true to your process and you stay within your rules, I think that's the best way to generate, you know, good returns. But guarantee can't be done. There's no guarantee there. A cicada, damn, that was a loud one. Yes. What is the prerequisites? Now, that sound you're hearing now, well, that's a plane taking off. Those are tourists leaving. Get out. Prerequisite for your lessons courses, willingness to learn. I don't know that I would say that there's a prerequisite. Curious about your opinion. If there's a recession in the next year, which sectors do you think will be affected most and why? Probably the sectors that have run up the most, communications and tech. Communications, not because of any of the network companies, but communications sector in the US is dominated by two companies, Google and Meta. 50% of the communications sector is two companies. I think the companies that ran up the most are the ones that will probably suffer the most, the ones that have the most debt in their capital structure. If there is a downturn in the economy, because the cash flow they're using to service that debt will dry up. And those earnings can disappear very quickly. Heard you were going to post all your trades. Yeah, but once we get into the fall, I've got to get level 3 content up, and then some other work done for the CFA side right now. And then once I'm done that, and I get back to the applied level, which is usually like August, September to about February, I'm on the applied level. Then I run and I do the CFA side. Then I'm back to the applied level. So yeah, I'm going to try my best to replicate all my trades in the paper portfolio so that you can see them when I do them. I mentioned that you were afraid that this would lead to copycat trades. What made you change your mind? I don't know what made me change my mind or why I came to that. I figure, given the type of audience I have that are mostly far more sophisticated, it's not like I'm on TikTok with a bunch of 25-year-olds. I think you can make up your own decision about whether or not you want to do something. But one of the reasons why I want to do it is and even on the Market Outlook, I have been, I think, fairly good at telling you what I would do before anything happens. I don't just get on and say, oh, I made a killing on this stock, I bought it at this price, sold it at this after the fact. That's sort of the purview of TikTok, is look how much I did make, I did this, I did that. It's like, well, tell me before you do it and I'll be impressed. So I think it just would add to some credibility to put the trades up to show what positions I am taking. Now, when I say I'm going to show my trades, I'm not going to show size. I will replicate the relative sizes in a paper portfolio. So if I sell 500 puts on AT&T at 17, in the paper portfolio, I might only do 25, to show you what it is that I did that day, or what it is that I've traded, or, what positions I'm taking. But I'm not going to show my specific portfolio because there's just some personal stuff and other positions that you probably wouldn't be able to replicate anyways. I'm just going to do it in the paper portfolio, but they will be my trades, and then we'll see. We'll see what happens, right? We'll see how well I do, because I do get asked, did you beat the market? That's a very difficult question for me to answer. When you say did I beat the market, do you mean from all sources of investment, the ones I manage and the ones I don't? And if you mean the ones I manage, all the accounts that I manage, including RRSPs, LIRAs, and TFSAs in which I cannot really use leverage or options? Or do you mean just the ones that in my taxable account? And if you mean just the ones in my taxable account, do you mean just the equities, or do you mean the Forex and all the other stuff I do, which is not included in the S&P 500? Because it's easy to beat the S&P 500 if you step outside the S&P 500. If you're willing to step outside, you can do it. But now that's not a fair benchmark, right? So it's not that easy to answer, did you beat the S&P 500? Well, what part of beating it did you want me to compare it with? A fair fight, meaning just equities against equities, or my whole taxable portfolio? And I may be doing things in my taxable portfolio because I'm trying to get something done in my TFSA. So I'm willing to take a loss in my taxable portfolio to over-contribute to my TFSA. Wow, do I include both those positions now? So the more complex your investment strategies are, the more difficult it is to have a single benchmark for what you do. So if I put my trades up, then there we go. It'll answer itself. What do we got? Some super investors are making large bets on metallurgical and thermal coal producers. Any thoughts, experience in that sector? Well, not really for coal, but yeah, I think you have smaller population countries moving away from coal, but larger population countries still using coal. Now that is, if you're talking about the metallurgical coal, you're talking about coal that goes into steel. If you're going to have another infrastructure build out, and in India, I'm looking in your general direction right now. If you're going to have another infrastructure build out, then yeah, you could have a demand, an increased demand for steel. And while steel mills may not make a lot of money on that because of the overcapacity, the raw materials going into that production would do quite well. So I can see the argument for it. Born in a third world country, migrated to Bermuda in the reinsurance field as an accountant doing CFA level 2. No regrets. It's night and day in terms of safety and income generation. Your answer to my PIMCO bond question made me realize I don't know what I'm doing. I clearly need to study more. The straddle was on SPY. Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't like the implied volatility at these levels, or you know, given where the market is and how much it can move in a day, the implied volatility, depending on how far out you're going, like if you're just trying to do a 1 day or a 1 week, I don't think you have enough in the premiums that I wouldn't feel comfortable, unless you mean you're buying the straddle on SPY, not shorting the straddle. I'd be more apt to buy a straddle. Not that I would, not that I'm gonna, but if given a choice between buy or sell the straddle, I'd lean towards buying the straddle. Let's see. That's my issue with developing countries. Not enough anger, except Haiti. Well, you can go to Panama. Lots of anger there. Can you give me some chess tips? I'm getting whopped by the people I play. It's probably because you're playing forward. You're starting from the board and you're playing forward. Try this when you're practicing, because of course you want to practice, right? Start from the end of the game and work backwards. Like start from a board that you want, start from the checkmate position you want, and then work backwards and figure out, well, how did you get checkmate? You must have taken some piece out of the way, and make it the biggest, baddest piece you can. or make it the easiest piece. It doesn't, but nothing in between. Like just give the other side as much benefit as you can, but slowly work your way backwards. Start from checkmate. If you're practicing, start from that and work backwards to a complete board. And I think you'll see some strategies unfold a lot better than trying to work forwards. Atlas shrugged. There you go. What do I think about Quebec? I think it's between Ontario and the Atlantic provinces. It's a nice country to drive through along the St. Lawrence, but I haven't spent a lot of time in Quebec. I don't know that I have an opinion about Quebec that's strong enough to say, oh my God, let me tell you about Quebec. But as they say on Letterkenny, great fishing in Quebec. Yep, great fishing in Quebec. Let's see if anybody gets that reference. Why don't you think about moving to Monaco? Monaco. I can't afford Monaco. Have you even looked at what things cost in Monaco? I'd be the poorest person in Monaco. Monaco's for billionaires. Billionaires. Not me. I can't afford Monaco. Zero income tax and many more benefits. Of course, it's a condensed place in terms of space, but definitely good weather almost all year round. And bloody expensive. Is China coming back? I don't think so. Good for longs on the country ETF? I don't think so. I don't think so. Last numbers I saw for the real estate sector, housing sector, January, February down, 52% over the same period last year. And last year wasn't great. Down 52%. Like, stuff isn't selling. And their population is again shrinking along with Japan's, right? I think you can hear the dogs down in the valley down there. Those valley people. Let's see, a couple more, and we'll call it. Recent Q&A. You said you can't set up a hedge fund easily unless it's on friends and family basis. Could you elaborate on this? What would be the least capital intensive investment vehicle? Well, if you're going to try to get into institutional money, you're going to be 1% fees if you can even raise money without a track record. 1%. And by the time you staff up and pay for your data feeds, pay your platform fees, pay all of that stuff, you might be $1 million a year in expenses. You need 100 million minimum just to break even. 100 million. Where are you going to get 100 million with no track record? With no proven track record, where are you going to get 100 million? Not going to happen. Not going to happen. So it's something that you would start after building a reputation in the industry. Let's see. Great call on Beyond Meat and Tesla. I'm wondering if you're seeing anything today that blatantly overvalued in a similar manner. Blatantly overvalued. I don't know about blatantly overvalued. I think somewhat overvalued. I think Pool is somewhat overvalued. 30 times forward earnings. They sell pools. I think they they were the beneficiary of the pandemic build out where everyone said, let's put our entertainment all in our house, and everybody wanted a pool in their backyard. I don't know that at these high interest rates with such low housing turnover, I don't know that they still justify that 30 times forward multiple. But I don't know that there's another product out there or theme where I look at and I say, like, this just doesn't have legs. I don't know if I see anything out there like that. I think we've lost the sunset. Let me see if I can turn on the light, and we'll turn the camera around here. Where are we? Lighting. Everything I can control. I like this. I got this app. I can control all the lights in all the rooms. I can control everything from an app. It's great. Not that one. We're going to be lounge, and there's the lounge. There's the lights. You can see that the lights went on. Now I just need to turn this around. Let me just get the camera. Give me a second. Yeah, hang on. I need a chair. Okay. Let's turn this around now. I don't know if you see those lights way out there. I think that's an Amazon fulfillment center. Those bright lights hanging out over there. Not Amazon fulfillment center. I think it's either a FedEx or a UPS fulfillment center. Sorry about that. Oh, hang on. What am I doing? Hang on. I just got to do it the other way. I was spinning the camera around instead of just hitting this. There we go. Okay. Let's put it there. All right. Let's answer a few more questions. Where are we here? Where are we? There we go. Okay, I'm back, Jack. Ecuador, you're just up the road from here. I know you don't have time. Curious to know, what is your plan after transition out of Serify? Hey, kitty. I don't know if you can see. Let's see if we can show you that. There it is, right there. That cat just showed up. Oh, it sees something. Oh, it sees its reflection in the glass, and now it's frozen. It'll be frozen there for about 20 minutes. Each one trying to figure out who's going to attack each other first. That cat just showed up. I never wanted a cat, but now I can't get rid of it. And, well, it's been here long enough now, about a month. I don't think it can survive out there on its own anymore, so it's mine now. Well, my plan after transition out of Serify, that comes with an assumption that there's a transition out of Serify. So let's do a decision tree. At the end of my term, let's say that I've just sort of lost interest in doing this. Well, then I just go my own way. I don't know that it's early enough to say that I have a plan at this point in time. I don't see myself leaving what I'm doing. I don't see myself leaving the industry. So I don't know. We'll see what happens over time. What are the chances of gaining employment in finance after passing level 1? As someone who is unemployed, again, I'm going to pass on the questions related to the job market, because I'm far removed from the job market. Quotas from Churchill. Indonesia. All right. Why Costa Rica? I have a video up on my channel of why I chose Costa Rica. I would recommend, or I'll just send you there. It lays out the case. How can your course material as a how can I use your course material as a non-finance professional? Is the material mainly meant to benefit CFA candidates? Well, the CFA subscriptions, yeah. They're made specifically for each of the exams, level 1, 2, 3. The applied level, no. The applied level, let's see if I can lean this up against there. No, I can't. The applied level, I think is accessible to everyone without necessarily having a CFA background behind you. But if you do have the CFA background behind you, I think it is incrementally better, because you already have a certain understanding of different securities and different asset classes. But throughout the 3 levels of CFA, we don't dive into any particular industries. So after you're done level 3, you get out there and you say, okay, well, you have an interview with a company, they're analysts in the mining sector or the utility sector or the banking sector, and you think, well, I know nothing about utilities or banking or mining. That's where the applied level comes in, and I think it augments that very well. There's a paper from NBAR saying GDP growth per working age population should also be taken into consideration when looking at the economy. Japan is surprisingly similar to the US. I haven't read the paper. GDP growth per working age population. Yeah. Okay, let me give you a scenario. Let's say that you have more and more retired lives. That instead of 30% of your population retired, you now have 60% of your population retired. And of the 40% that are not retired, you have a 70% participation rate. So 28% of the population is working, but their growth rate is 6%. Really nice growth rate. Can the 28% pay for the rest of the population? No. So I think it's a nice argument to bring in to say, hey, well, like, we're not that bad. You haven't looked at this and you haven't looked at that, and you're trying to find, I think, an argument to avoid, the most obvious thing. Usually the biggest, like, the argument can be made with 1 or 2 big points. Once you start dancing around the edges and you start bringing in different measures of something, you're trying to make a point. You're trying to support some pre-existing thesis or story that you had. So maybe, looking at something like that is written in such a way that it gives a political party permission to do something. But, you can think of an example where that wouldn't matter, where it just wouldn't matter. What is the recommendation order for the applied series if you want to manage your small portfolio, become financially independent? The options series, the PM. I don't know that I have a particular order. I would say start with the sector studies, get an understanding of the sectors, because you should understand what you're buying when you buy something. If you're buying a company in a particular sector, you should understand the drivers of that sector. There's quite a few industry videos up too, understanding utilities, semiconductors, pharmaceuticals. And if you're going to buy something in any of those spaces, at least watch that so you understand at least what's going on, so you will recognize when something's not working, when it's time to abandon a certain investment thesis that you have, or when the opportunity is much bigger than you think it is. I don't know that I would go into options yet. I would look at the portfolio construction series and the sector studies, and then go slow. Where'd Naomi go? Naomi's back in Canada, back down here April 10th. Will you give us a virtual tour of your house? It's right there. Here we go. It's not, I'm still changing the inside, so it's not worth taking a walk through the inside, but if you want to see, the bedroom wing of the house, it's way down there all the way to the end. And then behind me, I don't know if you can see behind me. Let's have a look up there. I don't know if you can see, there's another level up there that goes back, and then you can't see, but there's another part of the house behind these windows over there that goes, well, I'll draw it out, it goes that way. So it's, once it's done, yeah, I'll walk you through it. I'll show you what's going on. But right now, the furniture here is the furniture that was in the house when I bought it. It was all the stuff that was left here. It's not great stuff. The previous owner was cheap, had cheap tastes when it came to furniture and artwork, like cheap. Nice house, but then just cheap, you know, all show, no substance. You know those kind of people. Let's see. What made you decide to be altruistic? Have you always been this way? I don't know. Well, it's hard for me to answer if I've always been that way. You know, no, I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't say I've always been that way. There were, you know, everyone, I think, wants to be or has within them a desire to be a certain way, but sometimes economic circumstance requires you to behave in a different way. But when economic circumstance no longer stands in your way, you should be the person you are. And for some people, they're still an asshole. Some people, I don't know who said it either. It says money just makes you more of what you are. So if you come across somebody who's got a lot of money and they're an asshole, that's because they were an asshole without it. And that's who they truly are, is just an asshole. I don't know. I sometimes wonder, you know, if I am actually the person that sometimes the comments suggest I am. I don't know. The role of the City of London as a career hub in the financial markets. I don't know enough about it, but it is a financial hub. Do you think its golden age is past, or do you see it maintaining its significance moving forward? Well, that would require me to know something about the interaction between Brexit and it being a financial sector, and I don't know enough about that. There seemed to be some discussion back then that it would lose its status as a financial center because of that. I don't know if it has or hasn't, but it used to be the center of all finance, but now I think that's New York. Trudeau sucks. Yep. Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you there. As a client, PM, would you do your CFP if you already had your CFA? Well, who would it matter to? Like, if you find that it matters to your clients, that your clients say, where's your CFP? If it matters to your clients, then okay. But if it doesn't matter to your clients, if it doesn't matter to anyone in particular, I don't know that I would say yes. Thoughts on the upcoming elections in the U.S.? I think it was inevitable that it would be those two people, and I think it was inevitable that 70% of Americans don't want those two. How do you have a majority in a democracy getting exactly what they don't want? I mean, I find that interesting, right? Thoughts on upcoming one? Oh, we did that. Do you have a lot of shooting stars? I don't know. I don't think that this sky is the sky that I'm under is so privileged as to have more astronomical events that are visible than any other part of the sky. So no, I haven't even picked up on whether I do or don't. Ireland, happy belated St. Patrick's Day, yes. Let's see, cats are great. Dogs are best. Cats are great, dogs are best. Adopt a cat. I have no choice. The cat's sleeping on one of the chairs over there now. I have no choice. It just showed up. It's my fault. I fed it, and then it just wouldn't leave. So now I feed it every day, and I even buy it special types of food. I even buy it the chicken livers, and I have Gloria, who's my housekeeper, cook it up nice and slow. I do it really slow so it's tender, because if you cook it fast or really hard and chewy, he doesn't like it. Nah, she doesn't like it. Nice and tender and really slow, I feed it that. So I guess I got no one to blame but myself, and so she's decided to move the hell in, right? No discussion. Didn't ask me. Didn't wait to get invited. Just moved in. Hangs out by the pool all day long. Doesn't really do much around here. Costs money. What does your day look like? How many hours of sleep do you get, and how many hours do you wish you got? I get more sleep down here than in Canada. I think it's the heat. The heat just drags me out all day long. I'm, last time I ate, I think was 1:30. I'm not even hungry right now because it's just today it rained a little bit, so you felt the humidity and it was just hot, and it just drags you out. That by the time it gets to 8:30 or 9, you're like, you're tired, but you're up at 5:30. Like the sun comes up, and these bloody cicadas complain every time the sun gets up. So you're up. I'm doing okay on the sleep. Thoughts of living in Calgary. I was when I was in Ontario years ago. I was looking at moving to Calgary because I couldn't believe the prices of some of the houses out there. And this was when the oil sands just sort of crashed, and everyone had just gone. Investment had dried up, and Calgary looked like it was dead. Like I think 30% office occupancy in the downtown core, and you can get, I think it was in the Rocky something outside of, I forget what it is, but all these big oil houses that had gone up that were now up for sale. And it would have lowered my interest rate by my tax rate by about 5%. So I thought, what's stopping me from doing it? But I just wasn't ready to make the move. What causes the reverse repo to run down? More opportunities for money market funds to lend into the repo market at a rate higher than what the Fed is paying for it. That's what's causing it. And more demand for that cash. So as soon as that gets to zero, that tells the Fed that the excess liquidity in the market has been taken up by the reverse repo. Then they have to start watching the level of reserves. Let's see. Are you interested in longevity? Who isn't? If yes, do you use rapamycin? If not, you really should. You could listen to from MB Peter Attia. I don't know what rapamycin is. Rapamycin sounds like a drug or some kind of chemical or something that you take. I think that the human body over how many millennia has evolved to require only what is provided by nature, plants, fish, things like that, vegetables, fruit. I've never been a supplement person or a pill taker at all. You mentioned you did martial arts before. Any reason why you stopped? Life just takes you away. You leave for university, you start that. It's a whole other thing going on there, because you've got all this freedom now, and university is a wonderful party. It's a 4-year party, meeting new people, and so life just takes you from there. So let's say that I was really, really great at it. 18, 19 before I went away to university. I was really, really great at it. Well, then it would have been something that I would have had a hard time leaving, because I had the potential maybe to be, a competitor, or Olympic competitor in some particular sport. But I wasn't. I mean, I was okay, like the average Joe would be okay doing it, but I was never going to be anything in any kind of capacity in that respect. So you kind of just give those things up, right? I mean, it was a neat little hobby in high school. It was fun, for the most part, but after a while, it just fades away. I think if I were 18 today, it's a different world, right? Because the opportunity for professional fighting is so much bigger with UFC that just simply never existed way back then. It never existed. So you never had role models in that real respect. You never had a goal. You never had a pathway to that I think if I were probably 14 today, because I think I started at, yeah, I started at 14. I think if I were 14 today, it would be different because it would be uh, um, it would be a viable reality. Not when I was there. Those avenues didn't exist. I don't have a math background. Can I read books on math to help do the CFA? There's no math. There's arithmetic, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and the occasional square root and natural log. That's it. That's the extent of the arithmetic in CFA. It's not mathematical. It's arithmetic. I don't think that you do anything more than, well, you can do it all on a calculator. It's all grade 9 math. There's no calculus. There's no geometry. There's no calculate the angle of a triangle with these characters. There's no tangents, cosines, there's none of that nonsense going on. So yeah, I don't think that you need to read a math book to do arithmetic. Let's see. Cheap. Yep, cheap. Sound like a bird, ain't it? Cheap. Need guidance. Currently 29 years old in third world country. Does moving to US by applying for masters make sense at my age? What I have heard is that in both Canada and the US, that there is a reluctance to hire foreign students that are graduates unless they have North American experience. So that it's one of those things that, well, how can I get North American experience unless you hire me? But you won't hire me unless I have North American experience. So I think that if you did something like that, you would definitely have to include within there some kind of unpaid internship just to get experience, because that is the big problem with the foreign graduates in North America, is companies are hesitant because you may not understand this particular, our system or our culture or capitalism in general. So unless you've done a tour of duty of the North American markets, they are hesitant to hire. If Pierre takes over for Trudeau, would you consider coming back? No. No, I wouldn't. I'm here. Every day I'm here, I consider it more and more home. I get more and more comfortable. I have spots that I like. I have routines that I like. I'm becoming, more comfortable with the language, although it is slow because I'm just so busy with other things, but I am becoming more comfortable. In fact, I wrote a whole email today in Spanish without having to look anything up. But before I sent it, I did copy it and I put it into DeepL on the Spanish side to see if it translated into English right, in case I insulted somebody. But I wrote out the email in Spanish, and I was, okay, I did pretty good there. How to become rich like you? Well, I don't consider myself rich, number one. I consider myself successful first. And when you are successful at what you do, money shows up. That's not a problem to solve. If you're trying to solve the money problem, you're trying to solve for the solution and ignoring the process. Solve the process, and the solution shows up on its own. So I consider myself successful at the process that I have, but I don't consider myself rich. I wouldn't describe myself as rich. I'd describe myself as successful. I want Glory to show up. She comes at 7 a.m. and leaves at 4. 5 days a week. So she's not here. I have a job interview over dinner tomorrow. Any tips? Well, you should. I mean, if the service is good, you should tip. Even if the service isn't, just side to 8%, but if the service is good, 15%, sure, I would tip. I know that's not what you mean. Don't order alcohol. Do not order alcohol. Don't order anything. Don't order a salad either. They're freaking difficult to eat. They just don't stick on that fork very well, and you might forget your manners and start using your finger to shove the last bit of salad onto your. Don't do that. Don't even order soup. Don't have an appetizer. Just have a meal and make sure it's a nice light one with like a chicken and vegetable, and that's it. Something really easy to eat, and something that's not going to make you tired. Don't overeat. Don't order dessert. Don't drink. Don't order a drink. Even if the rest of the table do, just if it's a bottle of wine, have a glass, but don't finish it. Certainly don't reach for seconds for the bottle. Just don't do it. And like even if other people are ordering, you don't have to. But certainly, what you don't want is to be the only one ordering alcohol, and two of them, and then three. You don't want to do that. But yeah, other than that, I think I'm not a big fan of dinner meetings or anything that happens over dinner. I think, well, why does food have to be involved in what we're about to do here? Can't we just skip the food? Because, I mean, it's just a big expense and a big waste of time. Can't we just move on to something else? But they might want to see how you interact in a social setting. Are you socially awkward? And depending on the position that you're looking for, that might not be a good thing. Be inquisitive, right? I mean, it's okay to ask questions. Be inquisitive. People love to talk about what they know. They love to talk. So if you want to come off as an interesting person, ask a bunch of questions and never say anything, and people will leave the meeting going, "That was a really interesting person, right? What a great conversation." Did you give the cat a name? Rosalita. It's a female. Rosalita. I don't know what to do with the damn thing. I don't know whether to bring it to a vet, to give it a checkup. I don't know whether they get it fixed. I mean, once you start bringing it to a vet, you pretty much own it. I couldn't get near that thing for the first little while. Then little by little, I can now pick it up. Not for long. I can pick it up and move it like 2 or 3 feet. So I do that every so often just to get her used to the fact that I'm picking her up and moving her and she's in no danger. And each time I try to get an extra second out of it, build that trust really slow. But once you take it to a vet and you start paying for surgeries and procedures, you're pretty much investing in it. And I haven't decided yet whether or not I really want a cat. I haven't decided. Let's see. Who would benefit the most out of your courses? Can I take you to no previous knowledge or experience? Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. In fact, what I would do is in about a month, I'm going to make one of the videos free. Probably understanding utilities or understanding mining. One of them free just so that you can then judge for yourself how much value you get out of one of the videos that go into detail on a particular industry. So I am going to make one of them free for a period of time. Where is he reading from? I'm reading from my iPad. See, all your comments are right there. There's me on an endless loop now, right? Because there's like a 20-second delay from the time I say something to the time you actually see it. I'm talking, but look what's going on there. You see, that's something from 20 seconds ago. But I'm reading all your comments right there. So yeah, let me keep reading. What else we got here? Will Central America ever catch up with North America? I don't think so. And this goes way back, by the way. This is hundreds of years old. Is southern countries are not as productive as northern countries. This goes way back. It even has roots in the U.S. that businesses and individuals in the south of the US were never as productive as those in the north. And when you found a very productive business in the south, it was usually run by somebody from the north. That the further south you go, the less productive the population tends to be. And there's been a lot of reasons why. Back in, when it was in Europe, is really where it was noticed. Weber, Max Weber, who was a German sociologist, attributed it to a religion, specifically the Protestant religion, is that he said Protestantism gave you permission to be successful, something that Catholics didn't give you permission to be, that you were seen as favored by God the more successful you were. So his book, I think it was called Capitalism and the Protestant Ethic, is he attributed it to the northern states were more Protestant, the southern states were more Catholic. And even, I think it was Benjamin Franklin talked about the Protestant ethic and the work ethic of the North versus the South. So do I think that Latin American countries can ever catch up to North American countries? Probably not. Probably not. Unless you have a different, well, it would be a cultural change over a long period of time, I think. Would you hire a young fellow if he's willing to work for you for free of charge? I remember that on AJ Smirk's broadcast, you mentioned you would work for someone for less. Free of charge? Probably not free. I don't think I could accept free. I mean, I'd pay something, but situations like that tend to create more work, not less work. Somebody says, well, I just want to learn something. I'll just shadow you. It still requires work on my part, right? It's still, and that's just something, it's just time that I just don't have. I wish I had more time like that to do more one-on-one, but I mean, I have one person now, and I don't know that I have the bandwidth for multiple people. So it does require time. CFA program compatible with Treasury role in banks and corporates? Treasury role? Probably not. I don't think so. Well, when you say compatible, let's say incrementally helpful. Probably not. I don't know that I like the word compatible, but I don't think so. What do you think of Alberta's recent policies blocking renewables? I don't like it anytime a government decides that they know better than the free market. Here's what I think. Get out of the way, and if the market moves towards renewables, the market moves towards renewables. Let it be. But, to subsidize them or to ban them, to me seems like you have a group of people, probably with absolutely no experience in business whatsoever, attempting to pick winners and losers above the market. Like, really, none of that's going to work. So I'm not in favor of anything that attempts to place politicians' opinion above the market. So I think it sucks overall if that's what's going on. If the market doesn't want renewables, the market will decide it doesn't want renewables until there's a point where the market will say, well, this is what we need. The market will figure it out. The idea that a government can pick winners and losers, and let's say that the market is moving towards renewables and the government wants to speed it up. Why pick winners and losers? Why subsidize EVs and solar and wind and shit all over carbon capture? Like you're picking winners now. You're picking winners again. You don't have, I think, the experience or the mental aptitude as politicians to be playing in that field. Get out. Like just leave it alone. Do you think a car can retrace 42? Not with today's inflation read. Canada's inflation read came in at 2.8, lower than expected. The Bank of Canada is probably going to start cutting rates before the U.S. starts cutting rates. I've always been on that position that I think Canada starts cutting before the U.S. does. And if they do, because REITs are very bond-like in their cash flows, it's only going to support the price of the REIT. That if I were looking at CAR or doing something with CAR, I'd start thinking about $47 puts on weakness. I don't know that it reaches 42 again. What are your thoughts on long-term prospects of equity research as a career? Yeah, I think it continues on. I see no threat to it. Do you think SPY is on the higher side given CPI? Given Canada's CPI? Maybe. But I think it's in anticipation of the Fed tomorrow not doing anything and probably talking about balance sheet, tapering the balance sheet runoff, which will support the bond market, probably beginning sometime in May or June. Because by my calculation, the reverse repo will hit zero sometime by the end of June, beginning of July. Let's see. What are you most excited for in the next few years? What am I most excited for? Well, I want to see how this whole AI thing plays out. I mean, is there something there? If there is, let's see. I think that's what I'm most excited for, is how's it going to find its way into my life? That I think is interesting. It's an interesting time to be alive for sure, technology-wise. Let's see. Can you see my messages? Yes, I can. Mark Stinkdrum. Vladimir Putin. I don't know why you would say that. So do it again and we'll just block you. How's that sound? Unless you want to explain to me why you feel the need to insult me. You didn't answer my previous question about education. I will ask next time then. I didn't see it, I guess. Maybe the vet can scan it for a microchip. Well, that's a good, that's good. Because it's not as wild as the other two cats. There are two other cats, and man, they're mean looking and they're mangy looking. There's one with this big freaking head. In fact, this is wild. I don't know if you know that cats do this. I was upstairs and I had the door to the kitchen, all the windows open, and all I heard was a cat fight, like just a wicked cat fight. I come running down the stairs, it's gone, but there's just shit everywhere on the floor, like one of those cats' butts just exploded and shit went everywhere. And it stunk like hell. So I Googled, do cats shit when they fight? Apparently they do. Apparently in a fight, they automatically just clear their bowels so that they're lighter and that they can move faster. And it was disgusting. It was like just this explosion of shit. I'm looking at the floor. I thought it was blood at first, so I hopped over it, looking for the cat, and I couldn't find it. Went back inside. It's like, oh God, it's shit. That was not fun to clean up. I'm thinking, whoa, what the hell just happened down here? But cats shit when they're fighting. Dogs don't do that, by the way. Dogs don't shit when they're fighting. Cats do. You had a dog? Yeah, I had a lab. Okay, a couple more and then we'll move on. Let's see. Driving but just saying hi. Well, there's Naomi. Driving but just saying hi. Well, maybe not say hi while you're driving. Let's see. Northwest Territories. Northwest Territories. Let's find something here. Did your cat win? I have no idea if it won the fight. I have no idea. I was the loser in all of it. I had to clean up the shit. It was not fun. I did this kind of thing, and I had like as many paper towels as I could, and I was like, oh God. But I imagine that's how new fathers change baby diapers, because I was in a room one time where a baby was being changed, and as soon as that diaper came off, I was like, oh God, what the hell is that? It was powerful. Such a little thing, and it was just this pea-colored, and oh man. Anyways, look at the kind of conversation you get here. Where else are you going to get this? Nowhere. Nowhere. Let's see. I've literally just joined. What did I walk into? Well, you've missed it. All right. Let's call it. Do you realize that you have the most Canadian accent ever? You sound like a Trailer Park Boys character. Wasn't that one of the greatest Canadian shows ever? Trailer Park Boys. If you want to have a good Canadian weekend, get Letterkenny and Trailer Park Boys and watch them watch one episode of Trailer Park Boys in Letterkenny, then Trailer Park Boys in Letterkenny. And you'll get as much Canadiana as you want out of that. And after every couple, play a Tragically Hip song. There's a good Canadian weekend. Get some Timbits and some Tim Hortons coffee and do that. There's a way to spend a Saturday. Loved Trailer Park Boys. They were the best. They were the best. A South Park fan too, yeah. Nova Scotia. I've been to Nova Scotia. I like Nova Scotia. I was thinking of moving to Nova Scotia once. At night, I was walking, and this is so great. The fog came in, and it was like you're in this blanket of fog. You can barely see four or 5 feet ahead of you, and you're just walking in this blanket of fog. And I thought, this is fantastic. I love this. But things didn't work out the way I wanted them to, so I didn't move to Nova Scotia. All right. Okay. That's it. I'm going to hit end event here. We have coming up on 2 hours. And there was not much of a sunset tonight. Anyways, Fed Day tomorrow. Tomorrow morning will be the Market Outlook Q&A, and then tomorrow night I'll see if I can't get the synopsis, the overview of the Fed press conference up. I usually do a video. Wall Street Journal asked this. This is the answer. CNBC asked this. This is the answer. NPR asked this. Who the hell cares? I usually do one of those videos, so I'll do that tomorrow night. Ciao.